Well, hello. I'm back with another video. And I learned a few things on my recording of the last video, where the one where nothing actually worked, in which I used AUM as a mixer, as a host for some other tools, synths. And it took like half an hour, 25 minutes to produce the first note. And again, today I had quite some issues connecting my Behringer XR18 to this iPad successfully. It should work now. I hope so. So what we've got here is Drambo in standalone mode. I'm not going to be using AUM as a host today. This is just the standard Drambo, which I purchased about a week ago. I fiddled with it for a tiny amount of minutes, and I have it connected to my nanoKEY studio from Korg. I got this second hand last week, and it appears to be in good working order. Lights are going on when they have to go on, and the functions that are on it, like the arpeggio and the chord pads and whatnot in the XY pad, although a bit finicky, it all works. So here I have the PDF of the Drambo manual on my Kobo e-reader, and it's tiny, but I'm gonna try and follow a few pages of. I mean, we all know we sometimes gotta read the free manual, so let's see if we can make a synth. So we're on the first track in Drambo. I can do that again, but I opened a new project in Drambo with 8 channels with all MIDI to CV. So as Drambo emulates a modular synthesizer environment, the MIDI input coming from the on-screen keyboard or outer sources will be converted to voltage, to control voltage signals, like in a modular system. And you can then create patches, connect modules with virtual cables to come up with a certain sound design. So this chapter says around Drambo in 80 beats. Let's see if I can follow it along and make a synth. So this is only receiving MIDI now. And we see blinking there, and we see when I do a node off, so not a node on, but a node off, you will see these pads light up a bit. So that should work. To generate a sound, we need something to generate, and in a lot of cases that will be an oscillator. And fair enough, it produces a sound already. And why is this doing it now forever, even without touching a key? Because it's not being told to start and stop in a certain manner. So if we do want to control it a bit more, we need to have a processor, and in this case an amplitude envelope ADSR, to give this particular oscillator the command to be ready for when we press a note, but also stop playing when we stop pressing the note. And you see I can only press one key at a time. If I press a different one, the first one will be muted. That is because in this MIDI to CV module, we tell Drambo so far that we only need one voice of synthesis. Like you will often see in percussion, in bass sounds, and in synth lead sounds and whatnot. We can change that, but we can change it later. So the attack, decay, sustain, and release phase of this particular sound, we can change it. So if you want a sound that comes on a little bit slower, we can do this. Pull up the attack. And we can also have a long release. Okay. Of course, the sine wave is like the most standard type of wave for an oscillator, but we can change it to saw wave, for example. Okay, we got that. In a lot of synth designs, settings, you will find a filter to filter out certain frequencies. So let's put a filter in front of the amplitude envelope. So this the color code is all red. So these modules are all connected to each other. They treat the same sound. Now, if I play a note, it will be faint because it's being cut off. There's a low pass filter on it, and it cuts off at 130 hertz. So that means that it only lets through like the really low frequency. We can change that by turning up the cutoff. What's interesting with a filter is that it has a resonance. We can make really... Do you hear that? This can go so wild with a high resonance. This filter is almost acting as an oscillator, a sound generator itself. And it can get really ugly really fast. So it's internally, it's now clipping inside of Drambo. Not inside my recording so much because I lowered the output of the iPad enough so that we won't blow our ears out. We can of course also choose a square wave and a triangle. You hear the filter is almost adding like someone's whistling a tune. All right, we got that covered. So we added a filter in between the oscillator and the amp envelope. So this setup is now kind of static. I mean, we have a saw wave oscillator, a filter with a certain cutoff and resonance, and an amp envelope that I will set at a shorter attack. Let's make it more interesting and slide this filter a bit to the right. Not like that. Funny. And there we got a place to insert a modulator. And I'm going to insert an envelope. This envelope has a different color, not in any way related to the others. So in fact, it does nothing now. But we can change the cutoff of the filter. There's a small triangle next to it, left to it. And if I shortly click on that, I can connect it to the output of the envelope ADSR. Now, still nothing happened. But when we increase the amount that the envelope is allowed to change the cutoff, we'll get a different result. We can change this completely. To a bass-like. So we allow the envelope to shortly, because the attack is short and the decay is quite short, to shortly have a rather large influence on the cutoff frequency. So we can change its influence to almost 0. We got the original sound again. We can also make it negative. And that means the sound will start out with its original, shape, its original timbre, because the cutoff is basically what it was, but then the envelope kicks in a negative way, so it comes later. And if we put it the other way, the envelope influence comes first, and then the sound goes back to its default state. Negative again. I will set the nanoKEY Studio to a lower octave. And this keyboard to a higher, so we can audition the sounds we make in various pitch ranges. Very interesting results by changing the amount of influence that we let this envelope ADSR have on the cutoff of the signal. This is really, I don't know if you're listening to this through headphones or good studio monitors, but there's a very low, a sub-low in this sound now. See how much you can do with just a few modules actually. So we only convert the MIDI to virtual control voltage. We have an oscillator creating just a simple saw wave, and we have a filter. But by adjusting the envelope ADSR that controls the cutoff of this filter, we can do so many variations of that same sound already. And this is the ARP that you hear, like it's built into the nanoKEY Studio. I can just set it to ARP and play some arpeggios to have a more interesting structure to listen to. We can change the resonance. It's already clipping again, so I'm gonna turn the master volume of Drambo a bit lower as well. So the resonance has a big influence on the sound we're generating. It's very clean, and it's very much like the drum synth from the 80s. Okay, we got that. Now, of course, because Drambo offers modular patch building or instrument creation, whatever you want to call it, we can basically add whatever we like in this patch. So the tutorial tells us why not add, or ask us why not just add a second oscillator, so more sound generation. So I'll pick another oscillator. So now something weird happens. There seems to be that the filter is now connected to this and nothing is connected to that, so we don't hear our original sound anymore. So I think what we can do is first mix these two together with a mixer module. So this mixer is now in between the oscillators and the rest of the setup, but we'll have to tell the mixer what signals we want to mix. So I'm picking the output from oscillator 1, and I'm picking the output from oscillator 2. These two are now going into the mixer and sent onwards into the patch. So, and we can set their levels independently. So we can listen to only oscillator 1. And we can add oscillator 2. So oscillator 2 is an interestingly simple sound, actually. Simple because it doesn't go through all these things. Now, so far we were only able to have one voice playing at the same time, so we couldn't play a chord. So what we can do is tell this MIDI2CV module that we want to be able to have 4 voices playing at the same time. If I turn off the ARP here. Not very interesting yet. That's better. So we can play it like that. See, we have polyphony this tutorial in the Drambo manual tells us to add a shaper module and see what it can do. So I'm going to shape an ARP in a very low register. I'd rather have some more volume coming in from that. Thank you very much. All right, let's shape this a bit. A saturation. And there are plenty more modules where this comes from. For example, we have a delay effect. That's a bit much for such a fast arpeggio. I wouldn't mind actually changing some things while we're playing this, while we're holding a note or... So I think, I'm not following this tutorial at all now, it should be possible to add something like a low frequency LFO, oscillator, an LFO, to the shaper, but I'm going to see if I can just throw it in here as a modulator and connect it to the shaper without disturbing the rest of the signal chain, because I don't know. Okay, the LFO is not connected to anything. It has a color that's alien to the rest of the machine. But this amount can be bound to the LFO's output. Now it does nothing. But if I add the amount of influence that that LFO can have, the frequency can be synced to the beat of the song, which is 70 beats per minute. Ah, there you go. So it's actually quite nice. I didn't think this through before recording, but it's actually nice that I can control this machine Drambo with its in keys, and also at the same time over Bluetooth having an ARP running, and I may want to increase the number of voices that it can play to not kind of steal voices from one another. Okay, we got that. So we can have an LFO handle the saturation, for example. Of course, we can also, and I probably have to look for this again, we should be able to add an audio unit processor, which could be Blackhole. Now the ARP is not synced to the tempo of the project. The ARP is just doing its thing. Let's see what scale we're on this device. We're on this C. Is that the case? Let's go up a bit. Okay, that's something. The Blackhole is a bit overwhelming in this case, although the mix is only 50%, but Blackhole delivers very long reverb, so maybe I should go for, I thought there were more like that. So let's pick, for example, an artist preset. We Are Nihilists. You never know. Let's play a chord. Pretty smooth. So it is definitely fun to add a nice plugin to a patch in Drambo. That's for sure. So yeah, the thing, however, is we can actually kind of map this. I don't know what we can map from Blackhole. Could I, by the way, for example, could I adjust the mix of the reverb inside of Drambo with parameters? I don't know yet. Okay, we can also make the sound a little more interesting by detuning the oscillators a bit from each other. Now they play the exact same pitch. What if I add an LFO that controls maybe the tuning of both oscillators at the same time, but in opposite directions or something? I'm thinking out loud here. So I'm going to use the output of the LFO to influence the oscillator 1 tuning. Also, the same LFO, and the knobs will get the color of that LFO too. Nothing happens because we have set the influence to absolutely nothing. But what if I turn the one up and the other down? Maybe a little less. Frequency, I don't know if the frequency must be higher, less amount maybe. We want to slightly adjust the two oscillators' pitch. Over time. We could try this without the effect. Can I bypass a module? Let's see if we can find that black hole. Oh yeah, you can. You can leave it in but bypass it so that we get a little less affected sound. See? Now we can far better distinguish what the LFO for the pitch is actually doing. Its influence is quite harsh, quite too large. So the frequency must be lower. I actually want to have this synced to the beat in a smaller amount. If I set it to 0, the two oscillators will play exact the same pitch. It's hard to see when I should actually map some controls to the knobs on my nanoKEY Studio. That's what I bought it for mainly. And the amount of detuning I can probably just introduce another LFO. Boom. And this LFO influences nothing right now, but I can say that the amount of detuning on these two oscillators must be controlled by an LFO as well. So we will have one LFO controlling another LFO controlling the tuning of two oscillators. So let's see what it does. Sometimes I want to have that like in a maybe every 8 beats, and so the LFO is moving slowly. Maybe I will turn off the shaper for now and the delay to get a more pure sound. Oops. You're clipping hard. Let's put the black hole back on to get a totally different sound. So there you have it. I was seriously planning to follow the tutorial to create our very first patch. But to be honest, I got lost halfway the instructions, and this is what happens a lot to me because designing a sound and fiddling with it has become a bigger part of my music hobby than curating an actual song with it. It's not what I was going for when I restarted my music hobby last year again. But you could say since I got into some synth VSTs, and especially UVI's Falcon with its immense programming power, I kind of fallen in love with sound design instead of music creation. And I get to play with all these nice tools on iOS now. And it's just magnificent what you can do. I don't know what to say else. I had very few plans for this video except just try to create a sound in Drambo. And of course, we should and could come up with a song to actually make this into something more. But I don't know. Let's see if I can bind some. Yes, I can. I can bind a lot of controller values or a lot of parameter values to let's see if we can still, so the amplitude, This one, this is the fun of having a hardware controller. And this is why I know a lot of people will never work inside the box. I can totally feel why it would be awesome to have a large hardware synth and all the knobs to edit the sounds. Because now you don't hear the influence so much now because of all the things we did to the sound. If I turn off the amplitude, decay, sustain and release completely, you get this. It's just there's a tiny click in the software when you have everything to 0, and that's being transferred into Blackhole reverb. So I'll switch to a tiny amplitude or attack. Many possibilities. I'll revisit this later, I promise. It took me some external motivation, especially from the Discord group of Luxdark, Synth Seeker on YouTube. Thank you guys for motivating me to actually set up some tiny gear collection again, instead of my usual Reaper plus VST collection and synthesizers, large controller keyboards and whatnot. In this small contained setup, it's easier to come up with a simple IDE and fiddle around with it forever. So thank you for watching. Please let me know what you did not like, and I will try to do it better next time. Bye-bye.